Hey guys, Skye here, and today we're doing a discussion about ayahuasca and plant medicine. So we have Benjamin Crystal with us today. Thank you so much for coming, Benjamin.
Thank you.
So I think today what we wanted to do was get into some of the questions that are less delved into in other videos or other books and things like that.
Sure.
So one of the questions that came up for me that I thought was very important was what kind of questions do I need to ask a shaman or a curendero or ayahuascero before choosing someone to actually go into my ayahuasca process with?
Sure. I think one of the greatest lessons that comes through with working with grandmother medicine is learning to connect more with your intuition rather than your rational mind. So I would say the absolutely most important thing is to really trust your intuition when you're connecting with people or talking with people about doing this work. Beyond that, some very, very practical stuff I would recommend is maybe ask what the background of the person who's holding the space has, where they've done their training. Ideally, it would be good if you could connect with them, maybe in person to have a chat, or even sometimes it may be via email, or even better via conversation, whether it's via social media, Skype or telephones, but just so that you can have that personal connection, because I think when that comes through we start to really get a sense intuitively of where that person's coming from, what they're doing. Going back to the more practical stuff, it's probably very useful to know what style of ceremony they do. There's many different kind of lineages these days of ceremonies, and I would highly recommend people working in the more shamanic style, which is where you're working in inner space. So normally it means very low lighting, or preferably a fully darkened space, so that you can really connect with inner space. And
can you just share a little bit about inner space for us, like just define what this would mean for some people who don't know the terminology?
The easiest way to describe it is that we live in a 3D reality, so most of the stuff we experience is through our vision and our touch, so we see things as very physical reality, and inner space is more when you've maybe got your eyes closed or you're in a darkened space and you can start to connect with a more intuitive, meditative space. Some people may have experienced or heard of meditation techniques such as Vipassana or silence meditation, or even just standard transcendental meditation when you are in inner space, you're with your eyes closed and you're kind of just really tuning into to this whole world that sometimes we miss so much because we're running around in our world, and we're being bombarded with information on a visual and cerebral level.
Yeah, thank you for that. We'll come back to the stuff about the ceremonies in the dark later.
Yeah.
So what other questions would I want to ask a shaman before choosing somebody to
I think it's probably, in this day and age, it's probably worth asking maybe what are the actual constituents of the brew, like where was the medicine made, who made it, under what conditions, etc.
What ingredients?
Yeah, I mean the standard brew is made with the ayahuasca vine and an admix, normally chacruna, or sometimes in the more northern west coast of the Amazon they use another plant called charapunga. So yeah, that's very important. There are other admixes, tobacco. Some of the ones you may have heard about in the media is datura or toei. That's sometimes added to the brew. I wouldn't recommend drinking brew with that in. It is a shamanic plant that has its uses, but under very, very strict supervision, and often it's added to the brew just to give it a bit more kick. There's many people who come from the West who've had a lot of experience with more recreational medicines or drugs and other plant medicines where the experience can be very, very psychedelic, very visual and kind of trippy, and sometimes the subtlety, I mean it's not always subtle, but there is a very subtle intuitive level to working with grandmother medicine, and for some people that's a little bit lost on them because they're expecting this big fireworks display and super tricky visual experience. So sometimes some of these retreat centres or people, they add this toei to the brew to give it a bit more of a kind of like trippy kick, so that people feel like that they're kind of getting value for money and the experience that they're kind of normally used to. But yeah, there have been some issues with that not helping the process.
Yeah, so it's not actually adding any beneficial stuff to the process itself. Okay, that's
Cool.
that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
so just to recap on that, I'd say try and get a personal connection with the
Yep.
space holder so that you can just intuitively feel that person and feel if it's the right experience for you. What kind of tradition and training that they've had, and then who makes the brew, and what are the ingredients that are used in making it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.